welcome to another Miss Jody's Musical Minutes. I'm your host, Miss Jody. We have come a long way on our journey together, and we are at the end of discussing all those marks on a sheet of music. But we do still have one more element that I'd like to discuss, and that is what appears in the top left corner and the very bottom of our sheet of music. And for some reason, what comes to mind is football. How odd. Let's check it out.
Your Cowboys on the down.
There we go. There I go.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now I don't really know what I did there. Am I going? Who's that? Who's that running? What's he doing?
Throwing the ball to that guy's trying to towards touchdown.
Well, who's that guy that's catching it? What does he do? What's his position?
That guy was trying to kick the ball into the field goal for the extra point.
What's his position?
That guy was the kicker.
What was the guy I was throwing to?
That was the tight end.
Tight end.
Oh, catch that. Let's go.
I don't think I'm doing very good on this. What about, oh, there we go. What about all those guys in the line? What are they called?
They're called the linemen.
Oh.
They stop the defense from getting to their quarterback.
Oh.
Touchdown.
Shoot. So something I've learned from my son Brian about football is that all the players play together for a common goal of moving the ball forward, and they use these plays to make that happen. Now, on the field, there are players that have different actions to do than the other players. Well, that's a lot like our music parts. In the top left corner of our music, it shows the instrument name and part that is that sheet of music's printed notes. So, on a football field, you have people that just have individual things to do. They have their own jobs that are not like somebody else's jobs. Like, for example, the center and the quarterback and the tight end and the wide receiver. They all have their own specific thing to do that doesn't match anybody else's job. So it's real important for them to have their own thing down pat. In our orchestra, this is like our winds and percussion section, because each one of us has our own set of music to read, and those notes don't match anybody else's notes in the orchestra, even if they have the same instrument. For example, I would read the flute 2 part. It is similar, but not exactly the same as the flute 1 part. So I can't have the flute 1 part, and the flute 1 can't have my part. And throughout the orchestra, that's the same for all the wind players, which is the brass and woodwinds, and all the percussionists. Each person has a different page to look at with a different set of notes. Now, there are sections of our orchestra that read the same part as a group, and that's just like the linemen in the football field. They all have the job of stop all those opponent players from getting to that quarterback. So they're working together, all doing the same thing. In our orchestra, that's kind of like our string sections. So we have, for example, 10 first violins. And it's important that I remind you that there's a difference between the first violins and the second violins. So all 10 of our first violins will read the same sheet of music. Then the second violins, just like the flute 1 and 2 part, the second violins have a little bit different part than the violin 1 part. So all of them would be reading the same music. And it's the same for the violas, the cellos, and the basses. So we can compare that to a football team because we have some people that are working together on the same activity, and we have a lot of others that have their own individual parts. So it's important that we all have the correct music to look at. Some of you may not know, but I also serve as the orchestra librarian. The librarian's job is to get the music and distribute it to all the right players and get all the folders set up so that when somebody gets their music, they have all the correct parts. So that little top left corner that tells us what instrument part it is the most important for me because I have to make sure that everybody has the right part to look at. Now, as a side note, I'm also the librarian for our chorale. The chorale's music is completely different from the orchestra music in that every person has the same part to look at. In choral music, they have usually 2 running lines of those 5-line staffs. They usually have 2 running at a time, 1 treble, 1 bass clef. And the sopranos and the altos would read the 2 sets of notes on the treble line, and the tenors and the basses would read the 2 sets of notes on the bass clef line. So all of them have the same part, and depending on what part they sing, that's the set of notes that they make sure to look at and sing the correct notes for just their part. But all of their music looks the same. Now, the other marking at the bottom of the page shows who the publisher is for the set of music that we are playing. Now, this tells us where to get our music, especially important for the librarian. So when we perform a piece of music, we have paid for the rights to perform that piece of music. We have to either purchase the music or rent the music. If we purchase the music, we can play that piece as many times as we want to because we have purchased it for as many performances as we want to have. If we are going to rent a piece of music, that means we have to tell the publisher exactly how many times we're going to perform it, where we're going to perform it, what's the seating capacity, what's the conductor's name, what city are we going to be in, are there any soloists? We have to write quite a sheet out to request the music and pay for the music, and we can only perform it whatever times we have reserved it for. Then we have to collect the music and send it back to the publisher. If we want to play that music again, we have to go through the process all over again and rent it again and pay for it again. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, that seems sort of silly. Why don't you just buy all the music and then you could play it as many times as you want? Well, there's a lot of pieces that are only able to be rented. They are not available for purchasing. And so these pieces of music are often the ones that we want to use and we want to share with our audience. So we just have to find out which way we can get them from the publisher, either by purchasing or by renting, and then we get our music secured for a performance for you. So ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our journey together with Miss Jody's Musical Minutes. I really hope that you have learned something through these lessons, or at least refreshed your memory from the last time you had a music class, which may have been a lot of years ago. If there are topics that you would love to learn a little bit more about, maybe you've gone to a lot of orchestra concerts and you think to yourself, I wonder about this. Please feel free to send me an email and I will come up with a new video to talk about whatever topic it is that is a little question in your mind, or maybe something that you just want to ask about, because maybe there's a lot of people that are wondering that. And I would love to help you along your musical journey to becoming even smarter about the music that you listen to. It's been my pleasure to hang out with you on Mondays, and I hope you continue to have a wonderful year. Tune in again whenever we put up some Miss Jody's Musical Minutes and we'll tackle some new topics. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again for tuning in.